Alright, hi guys, I'm going to do the homework with you. If you have not watched my videos on the homework, um, last couple homeworks before break, you should, because this is now quite a bit harder. So, with the phase shift, what happens here is you want to start the same way where you're picturing the parent function of cosine x. So cosine x, we know, starts at a maximum, goes to a minimum, goes back up to a maximum. These x values are really easy. Normally 0, we know that this minimum occurs, this 0 occurs at pi over 2. The minimum occurs at pi, right? On the pi, we know this is 3 pi over 2, and we know that this is 2 pi. It takes 2 pi. So those are the, um, this is kind of 90, 180, 270, 316 degrees there, but here's your regular cosine curve, which we should have memorized. So easy, this is amplitude. That should be no problem. That just means that we're going to be going up to +2 and we're going to be going down to -2, which should be very simple at this point. So that just takes our cosine curve and it just makes, we know this is going to be 2, this is going to be -2. Easy. Um, what this does, though, is this complicates things big time. So these phase shifts are tricky. So now a phase shift, it's just a horizontal translation. They got a fancy name for it in trig, but so this is going to move our graph right pi over 3. So what's going to happen is if we know these x values really well, it doesn't make our job too bad because what we're going to do is actually we're just going to add pi over 3 to all of these values. So our graph used to start at 0. So it's not going to start at 0 anymore. It's going to start, where is this maximum going to be? It's going to start at pi over 3. So that one, I mean, you're like, oh, that's easy, right? Not so bad. But now it gets more complicated from here. So where was this value before? Well, up here it was at pi over 2. So now this value is at pi over 2 plus pi over 3, right? Because we're taking that value and we're shifting it to the right. You're going to take these x values and you're going to add pi over 3 to all the x values of the parent function. Now, obviously, we're only going to do those 5 key main points there. So if you get common denominators here, some algebra goes into this, right? We multiply this numerator and denominator by 3 to get 3 pi over 6 plus, and then we're going to multiply this top and bottom by 2 to get 2 pi over 6. All I'm doing is getting common denominators to add these fractions. This is like technically like 5th grade math. So there's 5 pi over 6. So now I know that this value is at pi over 3, this value is at 5 pi over 6. Um, this value is going to be where, this value is going to be where, and this value is going to be where. So see if you can yourself pause the video and take these old x values and add pi over 3 to all of them to come up with what that will be, and then we'll talk about how we're going to put that on the graph. So try to do that part yourself. Okay, you hopefully were able to get 5 pi over 6 for this 0. This other 0 is at 11 pi over 6. It hits the minimum right here at pi over 3, 4 pi over 3, excuse me, and then it ends at 7 pi over 3. So now we got to get this thing as a scale. What I always do is I just take a rule of thumb to just go by whatever the lowest, like the smallest factor is here, which would be pi over 6, right? Because pi over 3 is bigger. So I'm just going to go up to pi over 6. And this is going to be 1 pi over 6, right? So I'm going to go, if this is pi over 6, then this is 2 pi over 6. This is 3 pi over 6. And obviously some of these could be reduced, which we're going to have to do. I'm just going to make it obvious here first. 5 pi over 6, which we know that was one of our key ones, right? That was our 0. So I'm just going to put a 0 there just because I know it already is. 6 pi over 6, 7 pi over 6. I'm just skipping so that I don't run out of room. 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6. Here is 11 pi over 6. Another 0. I'm trying to stay neat. 12, 13, 14. And I'm stopping at 14 pi over 6 because I know that that's going to reduce to my 7 pi over 3, which is really where my maximum, we're going to be back up at our maximum. Our minimum was 4 pi over 3, right? So 4 pi over 3, if I want that in terms of pi over 6, that's going to be, I multiply top and bottom by 2, that's going to be at 8 pi over 6. It's the same thing. So that's going to be right here is where our minimum is going to be, 8 pi over 6, which is down at -2. And then obviously this is your pi over 3, gets reduced. And you don't, I normally would not put my um, on reduced, I guess you like, I wouldn't put those on normally here like this, 2 pi over 6. I was just showing you guys what my scale is so that you could tell. So there's the graph. It's definitely tough with some algebra all in there. But we'll try another one. Okay, cool. I'm going to pause it and get set up. Okay, so here's the number 51. So I'm talking about sine x. So here is my sine curve, right? And I'm just going to take care of this stuff out in front first. So this is obviously amplitude and reflection in the x-axis. That should be easy now. So I know that if I reflect, it's now going to look like this. And that is going to be -4 and +4, obviously, with the amplitude. So now we have to worry about the period. The period is 2 pi over that b, which is 2 pi over 2. So in this case, my period is pi. So that means that it's going to take pi to get all the way through here. So that's going to be pi, which makes this pi over 2, which makes this, obviously, that's 0. So that means that in the middle here, it's going to hit that minimum at pi over 4. And it's going to hit that maximum at, this is 1 pi over 4, 2 pi over 4. This is 3 pi over 4 then. Then that's obviously 4 pi over 4. Okay, so now we deal with the phase shift. So the phase shift, this is the game changer. This is frustrating because these are, take some algebra work, but now we're going to shift everybody right pi over 2. So what we're going to do is the same thing as last time. I want you to pause the video and I want you to take these 5 key points and I want you to add pi over 2 to them. So you're adding this to all of them. You're shifting it right. So pause the video and see if you can do that yourself. Okay. Did you guys get, here were my 5 key main points, and I know after I've made the phase shift, so I added pi over 2 to all of these and I got pi over 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the same technique as last time, and we're going to start by going up by pi over 4, since that's a small interval. So this is going to be 1 pi over 4, and this is going to be our 2 pi over 4, which is of our pi over 2, right? This is going to be our 3 pi over 4, 4 pi over 4, which I'm going to try to reduce here as I'm going. Hopefully that's okay. 4 pi over 4 is pi. 5 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4. 6 pi over 4. Down here is 3 pi over 2. And that's as far as we have to go. We could go through another cycle, but might as well stop there if we can. So I need up to 4 and -4 down to -4. And we are starting here at pi over 2. Phase shift. We are hitting our minimum at 3 pi over 4. 0 at pi. A maximum at 5 pi over 4. And we are finishing here at 3 pi over 2. There we go. Yay. Okay, next one. Okay. I would start here on this one, and I would say my regular cosine graph. My regular cosine graph, bam, starts high, goes minimum, back up. And we have now reflected this, so I'm going to take care of this first, always what. So I'm going to take care of the -3. We're reflecting in the x-axis, and we are having an amplitude of 3 that make this go down to 3, -3 up to +3. Everyone good so far, hopefully. Just taking care of the amplitude and the reflection. So now this is going to move us up 4. So now if I take this graph and I shift it up 4, so I'm taking care of the +4 out in front. This is now going to start me at 1, correct? And I'm going to be going all the way up to 7 with my midline here at 4. So let's see, I'm going to be starting at 1 and I'm going to be going up to 7 and back down to 1. Okay. We got nothing going on with our period, so our period is still 2 pi. That's good. So that makes things easier. That's 2 pi. That's pi. This is 0. This we know is pi over 2. And this guy is 3 pi over 2. So that's your normal cosine curve. So what do? We have to take all those and we have to add. This is going to move us right pi. So we're going to add pi to all of those x values. So go ahead and pause it, see if you can come up with what those are going to be by yourself. Okay, I did most of these. This one, so I'll do a couple with you. Like this is, see how at the midline at pi over 2? So pi over 2 plus, I have to add pi to that. So pi over 2 plus pi would be pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2, right? That's pi, which would be 3 pi over 2. So this should be 3 pi over 2. And then this one here, 3 pi over 2 plus 2 pi over 2 would be 5 pi over 2. It's going to hit that other. So it's looking like we can go up by pi over 2's. That depends on how far you want it spread out here. I'll spread it out a little more. It's pi over 2. Mm. We could have made it closer together. I'm just spreading it out. Okay. So we need to start 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is a midline. I'm just gonna draw it in. So we're starting at pi. We're going crossing our midline, starting low at pi. Sorry about that. Crossing our midline at 3 pi over 2 there. Then our maximum's going to be at 2 pi. We're up at 7. Back down to our midline at 5 pi over 2. And whoa, why did I put 3 pi over 2? Just kidding. It's getting late and I'm losing my mind. That's 3 pi. Okay. And that point should be at 1. Oh my god, you guys, this is not good. I've just made like 4 mistakes. Alright, hopefully you all aren't making as many mistakes as me. I'm losing it here. There it is though. Okay, and here's the answers to these ones. This one was easy compared to the other ones. Hopefully this one was okay. The other graphing ones were tough. Go back and watch it again if you have to. Try some others in the book if you need to, but yeah, those are hard. Bye, guys.